This is the story of the Pendleton Roundup, a rodeo held in a small Oregon wheat town every September since 1910, where the arena floor is grass, the parade allows no engines, and two of the most famous rides in rodeo history changed who the sport belonged to. You're about to see how a harvest celebration became one of America's great rodeos, and why what happened there in 1911, 1916, and 1929 still defines it. Practicality started the whole thing. Community leaders in Pendleton, Oregon wanted an exhibition of frontier pastimes, incorporated it on July 29, 1910 as the Northwestern Frontier Exhibition Association, and aimed it at mid-September for a working man's reason, since farmers had finished harvest by then and ranchers had wrapped their late summer brandings. The gates opened on September 29, 1910, and more than 7,000 people poured in. Out of that first show came a slogan the entire sport would eventually borrow, and Pendleton said it first: "Let her buck." Two names from those early years keep resurfacing in the story. Roy Raley served as the association's first president, and Till Taylor, the Umatilla County Sheriff, took over as its second president in 1912, 1 year before he'd play his part in the most famous crowd revolt in rodeo history. That first 1910 show also crowned Bertha Anger as Pendleton's first Roundup Queen, planting a royalty tradition as old as the rodeo itself, decades before most competitions thought to have one. And historians now study Pendleton's early queens as the beginning of rodeo royalty in America. A century on, nothing else in rodeo looks quite like it. Consider the ground itself, because the infield is grass, one of the few grass rodeo arenas anywhere, and riders swear it changes how the stock moves and how every fall lands. Competitors have their own name for that stretch of turf, the Green Mile, and winning on it carries a prestige all its own. Friday of the 4-day event brings the Westward Ho Parade, running since the beginning under one strict rule: no engines allowed. Covered wagons roll past, horse-drawn buggies creak along, riders and walkers fill the gaps, and the whole procession is reputed to be the largest non-motorized parade in the United States. The numbers hold up their end too. Crowds top 50,000 each year. The PRCA has named it Large Outdoor Rodeo of the Year 10 times, and the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame inducted it in 2008. One more thing sets Pendleton apart, and it might matter most of all. Every September, one of the largest traditional Native American encampments in the country rises beside the rodeo grounds, a teepee village going up in Roy Raley Park early in the week. Families travel from across the country for the Happy Canyon Night Show, a pageant telling the region's history and native culture that has run since its first performance in 1913, and for the American Indian Beauty Contest, the dances at the matinee performances, and the Indian relay races. Nobody bolted native culture onto this rodeo as an afterthought. The encampment and the bucking chutes grew up together, side by side from the start. Now for the rides that made the place legendary, and the first came in 1911, the Roundup's second year. George Fletcher, a young black cowboy, entered the saddle bronc competition as the first African American ever to compete for a world championship in the event, and his final ride won the crowd completely. Judges saw it differently. First prize went to a white cowboy named John Spain. Fletcher got runner-up, and the grandstand exploded, booing the decision, crowning Fletcher the people's champion, and according to witnesses, growing so enraged that people started pulling the grandstand apart, plank by plank. What happened next turned into rodeo folklore. Sheriff Till Taylor, an honorary director that year and soon to be the association's president, grabbed Fletcher's hat, cut it into pieces, and sold the scraps to the crowd as souvenirs. Nearly $700 came back, more than twice the value of the silver championship saddle Spain had carried off, and Taylor handed every cent to Fletcher. The judges never reversed themselves, but the crowd had delivered its own verdict and backed it with cash. Fletcher lived until 1973, long enough to watch himself pass into legend. 5 years later, the grandstands nearly came down a second time. Jackson's sundown was Nez Perce, a nephew of Chief Joseph, and as a boy he had been with him on the 1877 flight of the Nez Perce. When the 1916 Roundup arrived, he was 53 years old, more than double the age of the other finalists in the Saddle Bronc Championship. His draw for the final round was a horse named Angel, and the ride that followed became one of the most celebrated in the sport's history. Once again, the crowd threatened to tear the boards down if the title went anywhere else, and this time the judges agreed with the audience. Sundown took the bucking championship and the all-around title with it, becoming the first Native American to win a world championship in bronc riding, and the oldest person ever to win a rodeo world title, a record that stands. Pneumonia took him in 1923, and he was buried at Slickpoo Mission Cemetery near Jock's Spur, Idaho. The honors kept arriving for decades, with the Pendleton Roundup Hall of Fame calling in 1972, the National Cowboys of Color Museum and Hall of Fame in 1983, and the American Indian Athletes Hall of Fame in 1994. The third defining story is a tragedy. Cowgirls rode at Pendleton through the 1920s, competing in horse racing, trick roping, and bronc busting, and that era ended in 1929 when rider Bonnie McCarroll died from injuries suffered in a bronc riding accident at the Roundup. Directors answered by banning women from bucking events, and women contestants vanished from Pendleton entirely for more than 70 years. The return finally came in 2000 in barrel racing. One accident erased generations of cowgirls from that grass arena, and rodeo is still reckoning with the inheritance. Humans weren't the only legends that grass produced. Ask old-timers about the mid-century Roundup, and one name comes back: Warpaint, a paint saddle bronc foaled around 1945 who threw riders into the Pendleton dirt for years. 3 times the Rodeo Cowboys Association named him Bucking Horse of the Year, and by the time the honors finished accumulating, the horse had been inducted into 4 separate halls of fame, including the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame in 2011, decades after his death in 1975. At Pendleton, the broncs get remembered like the champions who rode them, and Warpaint gets remembered most of all. That is the history: a wheat town harvest festival that grew into a Hall of Fame rodeo, a native encampment as old as the arena beside it, a hat cut to pieces for the people's champion, a 53-year-old on a horse named Angel outriding men half his age, and a slogan the whole sport borrowed from one Oregon town, which leaves the present, and the present is thriving. Consider what Roundup Week does to the town today. Pendleton is home to roughly 17,000 people, and the rodeo pulls in around 50,000 visitors, meaning the city at least doubles in size for the week, with some counts putting the crowd at several times the local population. Roundup Stadium seats 17,000 and sells out almost every performance. Officials put the economic impact in the tens of millions of dollars, and the money doesn't stop at the city limits, spilling into Hermiston, Walla Walla, and the Tri-Cities. Hotels fill for miles in every direction, and a town the size of a small college suddenly runs one of the biggest sporting events in the Northwest. Money in the arena has scaled up with the crowds. The 2025 prize purse reached $497,000. Drawing top professional competitors from across the United States and Canada to ride on that famous grass, with the Cowboy Channel carrying the action to living rooms nationwide. Last September's 115th Roundup showed every thread of this story still running. Dylan Hancock of San Angelo, Texas took the all-around title on the strength of a tie-down roping win, while Q Taylor claimed the Saddle Bronc Championship, the same event Fletcher and Sundown made famous, and Jacek Frost of Browns Valley, California won the bareback title aboard a horse called Sideshow. Taylor Mohicans won the barrel racing, an event that exists at Pendleton only because women fought their way back into that arena in 2000, and Bailey Patterson took the breakaway roping crown that now pays equally with the men's events. Fittingly, the Arrow Lakes team won the Indian Relay, keeping native horsemanship at the center of the show more than a century after Jackson Sundown made the grandstands shake. The event even distills into the region's economy in liquid form, since Pendleton whiskey was inspired by the Roundup and has sponsored it since the brand's first bottle, with sponsorship money helping to build a full-scale medical facility on the rodeo grounds and to fund equal pay for breakaway roping, a fitting turn for an event still making amends to its cowgirls. This September 16th through 19th, the 116th Roundup happens. 4 afternoons of rodeo begin around 1:15. The Happy Canyon Night Show plays every evening as it has since 1913, and the Teepee Village stands once more in Roy Raley Park, named for the founder who started it all. Grass gets ridden. Wagons roll engine-free through downtown, and somewhere in a sold-out grandstand of 17,000, a first-timer learns why this crowd once tore at the boards for a cowboy the judges overlooked. Let her buck has meant the same thing in Pendleton for over 115 years. Hold nothing back and let the ride decide.